The smell of smoke drifted through the night as screams echoed across the massive concrete walls of Pul-e-Charkhi prison. Flames rose from one of the main cell blocks, lighting up the dark sky like a warning. Hundreds of prisoners, Taliban fighters, criminals, and desperate men ran through the chaos as guards fired warning shots that no one listened to. It was the biggest riot the prison had seen in years, a complete breakdown of control. For a moment, it felt like the entire prison had become a war zone all over again. And right at the center of it, a group of inmates was forcing open a metal gate that was never supposed to fail. But then something happened. Something no guard, no prisoner, and no commander in all of Afghanistan could have prepared for. And that was when the real nightmare began. Hours before the riot, the prison looked calm on the outside, even though everyone who worked there knew Pul-e-Charkhi was never truly peaceful. Built like a giant maze on the dusty edge of Kabul, it held more than 10,000 prisoners, far more than it was designed for. Some cells had only 4 beds, but held 12 people. Water pipes leaked, toilets overflowed, and the smell alone could make a new guard quit before lunchtime. Still, every morning the same routine played out. Guards shouting orders, prisoners lining up for food, and officers hoping nothing would explode into violence. But trouble was always hiding somewhere. That day had started quietly. Sunlight washed over the sandy yard as prisoners walked in slow circles, talking in low voices. Many of them were fighters captured during the Long War, men who had survived firefights, bombings, and raids. Others were just regular criminals mixed into the same blocks. It was this mix that made the prison dangerous. Old grudges spread like wildfire. Small arguments often turned into fistfights. And sometimes those fistfights turned into riots. Inside the main administrative building, a young American-trained Afghan officer named Daniel Morgan was reviewing reports. Daniel was one of the few foreign advisors still around, helping Afghan guards keep order in a prison that desperately needed it. He knew Pul-e-Charkhi's problems better than anyone: broken locks, corrupted officers, and prisoners who kept finding ways to sneak in phones and weapons. Every time Daniel fixed one issue, 3 more showed up. He sighed as he read a new report about a missing set of keys. Keys didn't just go missing here, they were either stolen or sold. Meanwhile, in cell block 4, a group of prisoners whispered around a small piece of metal they had been sharpening for weeks. They had a plan, one that depended on timing, chaos, and luck. In the block next to them, another group waited quietly, pretending to nap on their thin mattresses. No one watching them knew that 2 rival groups had agreed to stop fighting each other for one night, just long enough to cause a much bigger fight. As the sun dropped behind the hills, the prison grew colder. Guards changed shifts. Heavy gates slammed shut. A few prisoners complained about food, others played card games on the floor, and some just lay awake, listening. Then a loud bang shook the hallway. A guard shouted, "Who did that?" but his voice trembled. Everyone felt it immediately. This wasn't a normal noise. It was the kind of sound that meant something had just gone very wrong. In cell block 4, prisoners suddenly rushed the corridor, overpowering the first guard before he even had time to reach his radio. Another guard tried to lock the gate, but a metal rod swung down and knocked him off his feet. Alarms began screaming. Lights flickered. More prisoners burst out of their cells, pushing, shouting, spreading chaos in every direction. Daniel Morgan ran out of the office, grabbed a radio, and shouted into it, "Block 4 is breaching. Seal every exit now." But it was too late. The riot spread faster than anyone could contain it. Prisoners flipped tables, shattered windows, and tore open broken wires that sparked against the walls. Smoke started to rise from a fire someone had set in the kitchen area. Guards panicked as prisoners outnumbered them 20 to 1. For a moment, everyone realized the truth. Pul-e-Charkhi had lost control. And just when the guards thought they were finally going to push the prisoners back, something exploded near the yard. An explosion no one expected from inside the prison walls. The ground shook. The lights went out. And the real chaos began. Dust fell from the ceiling as the explosion rumbled through Pul-e-Charkhi like a giant waking up angry. For a moment, everyone, guards and prisoners, froze in shock. Then the shouting, running, and fear returned even louder than before. Flames from the earlier fire flickered against the dark hallways now that the power was out, making the prison look like a maze lit by torches. Daniel Morgan stumbled as the floor vibrated beneath him. He caught himself against a wall and grabbed his radio, but all he heard was static. The communication system had failed. That meant the guards in the far blocks were completely on their own. Not good at all, Daniel whispered. He wasn't afraid of the prisoners. He had been inside firefights before. What scared him was the feeling that something bigger was happening, something planned. Explosions inside a prison didn't happen by accident. Meanwhile, deeper inside Block 4, prisoners cheered wildly. Some thought the explosion was their fellow inmates fighting harder. Others believed the wall had been blown open from the outside. But none of them actually knew the truth. Prisoner groups rushed down different hallways, breaking into rooms and grabbing anything they could use: sticks, pipes, broken chair legs. Some ran simply because everyone else was running. Others ran because this was their one chance to escape a place that had held them for years. But in the middle of the chaos, there were also men who didn't want to be part of the riot. Older prisoners huddled in corners, protecting themselves from the fighting. One man knelt by his bunk, praying quietly as shouts echoed around him. Not everyone wanted freedom if it came through fire and blood. Outside, in the main yard, guards tried to form a protective line. Some had shields, others had only batons. Their captain yelled orders, but the sound was lost in the storm of noise around them. Prisoners rushed toward the yard from 2 different blocks. The guards were heavily outnumbered. Still, they braced themselves. If they lost the yard, they would lose the entire prison. Daniel ran toward the yard as fast as he could. His boots slipped on spilled water from broken pipes, and the heat from fires burned the air. When he reached the yard entrance, he saw the guards holding on with everything they had. He jumped into the line, grabbed a fallen shield, and pushed back a wave of prisoners. "Hold the left side," he shouted. "Don't let them surround us." For a few seconds, the guards pushed forward. But another explosion, smaller this time, shook the north wall and threw several men off their feet. Dust exploded into the air like a brown cloud. The line broke. Prisoners flooded into the yard. Daniel dragged one of the younger guards behind a low concrete barrier. The boy couldn't have been older than 19. His hands shook as he whispered, "Sir, what's happening? Who is doing this?" "I don't know," Daniel said honestly, "but we're not letting this place fall." Suddenly, above the shouting, a loud metallic, grinding sound began. At first it was hard to understand what it was. Then Daniel realized it was the outer gate. The massive gate that led to the prison's outer road. The gate that should have been locked with chains, bars, and 3 different security systems. It was opening. That was impossible. Inside the yard, even the prisoners slowed down. Everyone looked toward the north side as the gate creaked open, inch by heavy inch. Then, through the dust and smoke, shadows appeared. Not prisoners, not guards, armed men, dozens of them. They were moving in formation, stepping through the open gate like soldiers trained for battle. Their weapons glinted under the firelight. Their faces were wrapped with cloth, but their uniforms told Daniel exactly who they were. This wasn't just a riot. This was a full assault. The Taliban had entered Pul-e-Charkhi, and as the first fighter raised his rifle toward the yard, Daniel realized the night was far from over. What happened next would turn the prison from a riot zone into a battlefield. Gunfire cracked through the night, sharp and echoing off the concrete walls as the Taliban fighters stormed into the yard. Guards scattered in every direction, some diving behind barriers, others dragging injured men to safety. Prisoners fell silent for a heartbeat, unsure whether they had just been rescued or caught in something far worse. Daniel Morgan ducked behind an overturned food cart as bullets punched into the ground around him. The air tasted like smoke and metal. He peeked over the edge and watched the fighters move with chilling speed. These weren't random attackers. They were organized, trained, and focused. They had come for someone or something specific. A guard crashed beside Daniel, panting hard. They opened the gate from the outside. How is that possible? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. But we need to slow them down before they reach the central blocks. The guard swallowed. Sir, we're outnumbered. We don't need to win, Daniel said. We just need to buy time. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure time was something they had left. Inside the yard, prisoners slowly backed away from the Taliban fighters. Some raised their hands. Others ran for cover. A few men, clearly expecting this rescue, rushed forward cheering. The fighters signaled them to stay low and hurry behind the gate. So that was it. The attack wasn't meant to free everyone, only certain prisoners. Daniel watched several key inmates sprint toward the fighters, high-ranking Taliban members, men captured during vicious battles. They disappeared behind the wall, escorted like VIPs. Everything suddenly made sense. The riot wasn't an accident. The explosion wasn't random. This entire nightmare had been planned to create enough chaos so the fighters could get inside unnoticed. But now the Taliban had a new problem. The Afghan army was arriving. Headlights flashed on the far road. Trucks rumbled closer. Daniel heard the distant thump of helicopter blades. The Taliban fighters realized it too. They shouted orders and began pulling back, trying to escape with the prisoners they come for. Daniel stood up and ran toward the main block. He needed to get the rest of the guards organized before the army burst through and turned the prison into an even bigger war zone. But inside the hallway, he found something worse than gunfire. The fire from earlier had spread. Flames crawled up the walls, and thick black smoke filled the air like a heavy blanket. Prisoners coughed as they tried to escape the choking heat. Some guards guided them towards safer routes, shouting for them to keep moving. The entire building felt like it was breathing smoke. Daniel grabbed a fire extinguisher and blasted a path forward. The ceiling cracked above him, raining sparks onto the floor. Every step felt hotter than the last. He pushed through the smoke and reached the central control room, or what was left of it. The windows had been smashed. Papers were scattered across the floor. The main security console was burned, and the computers were useless. 3 guards lay on the ground, alive but injured. Daniel helped them up and ordered them to move to the courtyard. Suddenly, the ground trembled again. Not an explosion, this time, helicopters. Afghan army soldiers fast roped down outside the yard. More trucks crashed through the outer gates. Sirens filled the night. The prison was now surrounded. Taliban fighters fired back as they retreated with their rescued men, trying to slip away before being trapped. Bullets ripped across the yard. Smoke swirled around the searchlights from the helicopters above. Prisoners curled on the ground, covering their heads. Daniel spotted a group of fighters, leading 3 important inmates, toward a hole blasted through the north wall. They were seconds from escaping. If they made it through, the entire operation would have succeeded. No, Daniel whispered. Not tonight. He sprinted across the yard, weaving between fallen furniture and broken concrete. Gunfire zipped past him. A fighter turned, raised his rifle, and aimed directly at Daniel. But before he could shoot, an Afghan army soldier fired from above, dropping the fighter instantly. Daniel didn't slow down. He reached the hole in the wall just as the last prisoner was climbing out. Daniel lunged forward, grabbed the man by the back of his shirt, and yanked him down. The prisoner hit the ground hard, stunned. 2 Taliban fighters turned toward Daniel with furious shouts. He was out of time. Before they could fire, a blinding flash lit the yard, an army stun grenade. The fighters stumbled back, covering their eyes. Soldiers rushed in, tackling them to the ground. Daniel pulled the stunned prisoner to his feet and handed him to the soldiers. "Take him," he yelled. The fighters still inside the prison realized the escape had failed. Their mission had fallen apart. With gunfire closing in on them, the remaining men fled into the darkness outside the wall, disappearing before the army could stop them. Minutes later, the shooting slowed, then stopped. The riot burned itself out. Prisoners surrendered or hid. Fires were put out. Injured guards were carried to safety. And the army took control of the entire prison. Pul-e-Charkhi was finally quiet again, but not peaceful. Daniel stood in the yard, breathing the smoky air, his clothes torn and covered in dust. Around him, soldiers searched the buildings, guards checked survivors, and prisoners looked around with exhausted eyes. The Taliban attack had failed, but barely, and as the first rays of morning sun rose over the damaged prison walls, Daniel knew one thing for certain. Pul-e-Charkhi wasn't just Afghanistan's most chaotic megaprison. Tonight had proved it was a war zone that never truly slept. The nightmare was over, for now.